Oh, hello. In this lesson, what we're going to be doing is learning how to basically add some user inputs to our HTML pages, and then kind of like get the value out of that input. Like we want to do something with that value, right? If we ask them their name, we want to use their name for something. If we ask them what their favorite animal is, we want to do something with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an input, and then we're going to get that value of that input in our JavaScript, and then try to like do something with it and show, I don't know, do something fancy with it. So you'll see here I actually started with a totally blank HTML page. I really want to build this from nothing so we really understand what's going on. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to make an H1 that says, tell us your favorite animal. Okay? I'm going to press run so you can see that that pops up. All right, now what I'm going to do is first is I'm actually going to add an input to my HTML page. If I want to have an input on my web page, I need to add it in the HTML. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add an input, and I'll show you how simple it is. It's literally just that, input. Right? If I press play now, you'll see the input pops up. Now this isn't best practice just to put an input there. We want to add a few more attributes to this input element. So what we're going to do is just first, let's give it an ID, because we're going to have to reference this later. So I'm going to call this animal, favorite animal. Favorite animal. All right. Now that has an ID, I can reference it later in my JavaScript. The next thing I want to do is I want to say what kind of input I want this to be. I want this to be text. Now, this might seem intuitive because, usually you want your user to put text in. But sometimes you could actually, like, maybe you always want them to put a number in. So if I put this, you'll see that the users can only put a number in. If I try to type anything right now, it doesn't work. But if I put like 78, I can put a number in there. You can do all sorts of things. You do passwords. This will show you that, like, let's say you want people to enter passwords. See how it's only dots. So the type does matter. There's so many different ones that you can put in there. There's files, dates. Ooh, I don't want that. See, that's how you get a date input. So those are all easy things you can do with HTML. But we're doing something simple here. We're just putting text. And then finally, there's something called placeholder, which is like the text that you see inside the input. So it's like type your favorite animal. So if you see here, this is like the grayed out text behind it before, right? You see it right there? Yeah, okay. So, all right, so we got our input now. That's looking good. Now the next thing we need is probably a button that we're going to have the user press when they want to submit it. I'm going to give it an ID of submit, okay? And then we'll say submit for this. So if you look here, let's see if we have all the elements we need. Right, so we say tell us your favorite animal, we have an input, and we have a submit button. Now, what I want to do is just when I press the button, when the user says their favorite animal, right, cats, and they press submit, I want it to say something, a little message down here, like, I love cats too. So I'm going to make a little div for that, a box to put it in. I'm going to say, and I'm going to give this an ID of like message, because I'm going to give the user a little message. And you'll see there's nothing there because we haven't put any content in there, and that's all I need. So I just need these 4 elements to get going. So the next part of this is, first, we want to what I want to do is I want to make it so when I type something in and I click this button, it pops up on the screen. The first thing I want to do is make it so when I click this button, I want to make it so this button's clickable. Let's just start with that. So I want to make it so when I click the button, it recognizes that it's been clicked, right? So step 1, let's make that button clickable. So I'm going to reference it first. I'm going to say let submit button equal document.query selector, and let's get the ID of that button. So if I go over here, where's the ID of that button? Let's see here. I called it submit, right? That's the ID of the button. Copy and paste it so I make sure I don't mess it up. So now that I've referenced the button, right, I'm going to say submit button dot add event listener. And what I'm going to say is when I click it, I want to go boom, 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 boom. All right, so there'll be some action that takes place. And let's just test it out by adding this alert. I'm going to say, hey. So let's see if this works. Let's see if my button works. All right, the button's totally functional. Says, hey, wonderful. All right, so the next part of this is I'm going to kind of teach this in an odd order, but what I want to do is I'm going to actually have the message pop up first because we know how to do that. So in that message box, I'm going to just add a message real quick. So we'll see here. So you see the div with the ID of message? That's where we're going to put our message. So here, I'm going to say this. Let's reference our message. So I'm going to say, here we go. Let message box equal document query selector. And just to say what I'm doing, remember I'm referencing the box where I'm going to put my message later, right? So this is where I want my new content to pop up. And to make the new content pop up, we're going to say message box.innerHTML, right? Equals, and we'll say, I also love that animal. So check this out. So if I press submit now, see how that pops up? Now, this isn't very interesting because it's not using the user input. So this is going to be the last step here. Like, how do we get this user input? Instead of saying, I also love that animal, we'll have it say the actual animal the user entered. So it's a two-step process, and this is the new part here. So here we go. So once I've made my button, and like I know how to make my message, here's what I want to do. I want to make a reference to this input, and then I want to get the value out of it. So those are the first two things we're going to do. So I'm going to say step one, reference input. Okay, so let's make a reference to that input. So I'm going to say let animal input equal document.query selector, and let's actually reference that input. So what's the ID of that input? It's favorite animal. So I'm going to copy and paste this, right? I'm going to put that here. So I've now referenced it. Now step two, there's another step here. I want to get the value of it. So I'm going to get value of the input. So now that I've actually got this, I've referenced it, I want to get the value out of it. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to say let animal value equal animal input, that's the variable I just made that references that input, dot value. So that's how I get the value out of there. Okay, so it's a two-step process. And just to show you that I got it, check it out. I'm going to alert the user of animal value. So let's see if this actually works. So if I did this correctly, what should pop up is when I type this in and press submit, I should see an alert of whatever animal the user entered in. So let's say I put in cats, submit, see the alert is of cats. So I got the user input out of it. So this is working. Now the last thing I want to do is I actually wanted to add that to this message. So check this out. This is the last step here. So I'm going to say step 3, add input message. All right, so this is my third step. And what we're going to do is something called interpolation. Interpolation means to basically put a value inside of a string. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to place these these quotes with backticks. Backticks are right above your tab or to the left of the number 1 button. So this is a backtick. So I'm adding backticks. That's very important. This won't work without backticks. And now what I'm going to do, instead of saying that animal, I'm going to do $ and curly braces. And inside the curly braces, I'm going to put this variable. So I am interpolating this variable to the string. So I want you to see this. So I also love animal value. So whatever the user enters, it will end up in this sentence. So let me just put an exclamation mark over it. Let's see if this works. So I'll say, once again, cats, and let's see the message. I also love cats. We can do that with dogs. I also love dogs. I could say leopards. I don't know how to spell leopard. Let's see if that's right. I also love leopard. Okay, so we've got it. Remember, step 1 is to reference that input. Step 2 is to get the value out of that input, right? We want to actually know the actual value of what the user entered, and then we do something with it. All right, that's it. Goodbye.